It's been long enough, and I believe it is now time to provide an update on the state of Bleach Rebirth of Souls, which is still due for release in late March, March the 21st, to be specific, to be exact, later this year. So, in a little over 2 months, will this game release for console and PC. If I get the game, if I decide to cover the game, it will be on PC. There's a few things I want to go over with this game. The first is that I think the story mode will be, at least at the very minimum, decent. The most relevant piece of evidence for that is, of course, this trailer that Bandai Namco released last month, which confirms that the Vizards are going to be in the game, specifically Shinji is going to be playable, and that the game is going to cover the past arc. Now, for those who are not in the know, the entire series of Bleach has 13 different arcs. The upcoming Rebirth of Souls game will end at the end of the Arrancar arc. So it's going to cover the first 8 arcs, with the exception of the Bount arc, which is filler, as well as the new Captain arc, which is also filler. The past arc specifically in the show, which explains the backstory of these characters known as the Vizards, is the shortest arc in the entire series, and it only consists of 6 episodes in the actual show. This is content that the developers over at Tamsoft could have skipped over, but instead they are including it, as evident by this trailer, in the game itself. Not only that, but according to a recent scan, we know that Grand Fisher will be in the game, probably as a boss character that you fight early on in the story mode. And of course, for anyone who knows anything about the story of Bleach, Grand Fisher is one of the Hollows first seen in the first 10 episodes, within the first 10 episodes of the series. And the creature is involved with Ichigo's backstory and explains what happened to his mother. So Grand Fisher and a number of the other Hollows will be in the game. You'll be able to fight them in the story mode. So in terms of content, it seems like they're really going the full 9 yards. They're giving fans exactly what they want and what they should expect from, a modern game based on the Bleach franchise. In terms of presentation, that may be a different story. And just to cover this briefly, but the marketing for Bleach Rebirth of Souls has not improved. In fact, in a way, it's kind of gotten worse. And I haven't been proven incorrect that the marketing would improve after the release of Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, which came out back in October. The marketing has ramped up to some extent, which obviously was to be expected, but the way Bandai Namco is marketing the game doesn't really make sense, because it's clear and it's obvious that the majority of the game's sales is going to come from North America, along with Europe. This is evident in the view counts for all of the trailers that Bleach Rebirth of Souls has received. If you look at the view counts for these videos on the Asian channel for Bandai Namco Entertainment, and then compare those view counts with the American channel of Bandai Namco, it's clear that the American channel is receiving a lot more attention versus the Asian channel. So most of the game's sales are going to come from America. So with that point expressed, why is it that Tamsoft and Bandai Namco would upload marketing material for Rebirth of Souls only to the Japanese channel, the main channel for Bandai Namco, and then not even include captions for non-Japanese speaking folk, such as myself? Now, I can't understand a word that he's saying, and I can't understand anything in the actual gameplay that's actually written out, because it's all in Japanese. And I expressed this here in the comments. Why would you upload a video like this and not make an English version or provide subtitle captions for those who don't speak Japanese? Which, by the way, represents the majority of the people who are even going to buy this game in the first place. Japan is not going to hold the majority of the sales for this game, as evident by the view count numbers for any trailer uploaded on this game, which I just went over. I just showed that visually. Most of the sales are going to come from North America and Europe. And then we have a clown in the comments talking about how no one couldn't have asked for better marketing than this. Clown show. That's what this is. This video is damn near useless for anyone who doesn't speak Japanese. And of course the person I'm talking about is this clown right here. Couldn't have asked for better marketing than this. I damn sure could have asked for better marketing than this nonsense right here. And this isn't the only video that Bandai Namco has uploaded on this channel to promote and market this game, where everything's in Japanese and they don't have any subtitles or closed captions for those who don't speak the language. There's also the more recent story mode showcase, which also is in all Japanese with no subtitles and no closed captions. I can't understand a word he's saying, and I can't understand anything else is written out or any dialogue, nothing. So the marketing for the game has not improved. There's no argument to be had about that. And clearly, I think it's going to affect the game's sales. It's going to affect the sales numbers. With regards to the presentation of the story mode, clearly this is a step up from Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, which was nothing but a pathetic slideshow showcase with some stupid character maps thrown in, along with an array of terrible UI. It appears that's not what this is. This is going to be some simple cutscenes thrown in and some fights that are inserted in between the cutscenes. So it's going to be more of a traditional story mode. Now, some people are complaining about this. Some people are not happy about the presentation of the story mode. And I can kind of understand why. I can sympathize with those who aren't feeling this, for anyone who has seen this who has criticized it. Such as this person right here, who states that the story mode looks so bad, the cinematics feels bland, and that the characters barely move or have expression. Well, I don't fully agree with that statement. I mean, the characters are moving. They do have expression. It's just they don't have the level of expression that many want them to have. I also saw some comparisons between this and another major anime video game franchise with the Naruto Storm games, which is also another, AAA budget game based on a highly popular anime franchise. And if you compare this to the Naruto Storm games, clearly it is not on the same level. This game is not being developed by a company like CyberConnect 2, who has years and years and years of experience under their belt to develop a game like this, based on a popular franchise, an IP like Bleach. Instead, it's being developed by a smaller company, Tamsoft, who has been around for years, but this is their first major project that they're working on. And this is their first major project that they're working on that's based on a popular license like Bleach. The level of detail is not there, clearly by comparison. I mean, just judging from the background and everything that's around the character models themselves looks, it doesn't look that great. It doesn't look that good. Some people are hardcore nitpicking this. Some people wanted like a shot-for-shot remake of the anime and video game form, which is absurd. This is not an RPG game. This is a fighting game first and foremost. The budget should go into the actual gameplay. That doesn't mean you neglect the story mode, but to expect something that's a one-to-one recreation of the anime in video game form, I mean, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. So I don't agree with those comments. Those people are asking for way too much, and regardless, even if they did do that, even if they did do a one-to-one recreation of the show in video game form, the simple fact of the matter is the video game is never going to be as good as the actual show. That's for any of these games. I don't care what the franchise is. Dragon Ball, Naruto, Bleach, One Piece, whatever. The show is always going to be superior to the game. That's just fact. So again, in terms of presentation, the game leaves quite a bit to be desired. But again, I think this is a step up from, the nonsense that we had in Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. And I think the content is going to be there. It's just a question of to what extent. Because I do believe there are some corners that are going to be cut. There's a number of battles in the series that I think will not be included into this game. Specifically when it comes to the Fraction Arankar characters. None of which are clearly going to make the final roster. But I like the fact that we now have a Bleach game where you can fight the Hollows, and it seems that it is a decent recreation of the show in terms of the gameplay and what aspects of the anime are going to be available to actually play. I think the story mode will be one of the game's highlights if you can get past the somewhat mediocre presentation. Now, one area of this game that I think people are really overselling, specifically those within the actual Bleach fandom are overselling, is the actual game itself. I think a lot of people are going to end up being disappointed with this. And just to highlight another comment that I found online, this person says people should consider the type of game that Rebirth of Souls actually is. It's not meant to retell Bleach's story. This is a fighting game that utilizes Bleach characters. It's not a Budokai Tenkaichi game where the main thing is to incorporate every character ever. So the expectation shouldn't be a large cast. He goes on to say that it's not a Naruto Storm game where it's an arena fighter that largely is focused on the spectacle of the series. I vehemently disagree with that statement for obvious reasons. According to this person, Bleach Rebirth of Souls is a competitive fighting game, and that the focus on the game, again according to this person, is the mechanical depth of the fighting system. Well, I think that's bullshit. In fact, I don't just think it's bullshit, I know it's bullshit, based on multiple sources of evidence. Here's another comment that I've captured that I actually agree with, where the person says, they think it's a good game, but it lacks moves. You see the same attack strings over and over again, similar to Jump Force, and that they don't see any new combos or new moves. The same attack strings repeat, and those attack strings only change when the characters use their transformation or they evolve. Here's yet another comment expressing something similar. I wish I could be more optimistic about this game. It looks good, but the attacks are repetitive, the movement is slow, and the attacks don't feel like they have any depth or impact. I enjoy Bleach, but every other property that I've had interest in playing had much more dynamic fighting. If it's not fun to watch, then I don't have high hopes for playing it. So there's plenty of people that feel that way, as evident by those two comments alone. And I guess I'm somewhere in between. Here's a gameplay video of someone playing as Toshiro versus Gin, and you can kind of see where those comments are coming from. We know how the game plays. Each character has 9 different health bars, which are presented in the form of stocks, and then underneath those stocks, we have the individual health bar that both players currently are on. At the bottom of the screen, we have an EX meter, which is basically a spiritual pressure meter where the players can use different special moves. And then we also have a reverse gauge down here, which is used for combo extenders. And as far as I know, the reverse gauge is the only way you really can extend your combo. At the top corner of the screen, just under the character portraits, we have the evolution gauge, so the characters can transform. For Soul Reaper characters, that's their Bankai. For the visored characters, that will be included. Thus far, Shinji's the only one, the only visored that's been confirmed. That'll be their Holification. And then for the Espada characters, that's their Resurrection transformation. But every character has one of these. And if a character's Bankai isn't available, then their Shikai will be their transformation. But the game looks very repetitive match after match. The game is clearly going to rely heavily on meters, which isn't much different from any other anime game that's out there that people are already familiar with. And you do see the same attack strings over and over and over again. There's some other questions that people have wanted answers to regarding just how much depth the fighting system is actually going to have and how fleshed out the characters are actually going to be. We now have answers to those questions as well, all thanks to these character scans, which I have found translated versions of. Originally, all of this was in Japanese. But each character that's in the game is going to be rated based off of 5 different categories. You have offensive power, mobility, range, durability, and special technique. And each character in the game is going to have a special technique that they can utilize in the fighting system, and they'll have up to 2 different spiritual pressure moves, which will likely only be altered after they've used their transformation, which is the evolve gauge that I showed earlier, that I pointed out. So for example, Rukia here, her unique technique is Hado number 30, Red Fire Cannon, which is a magic ability that she has. And then she'll have Spiritual Pressure Technique 1, and then Spiritual Pressure Technique number 2. And then you have your Before Awakening techniques, and then your After Awakening techniques. So on the left-hand side, we have the abilities she'll have before she uses her awakening, and then on the right, we have after she uses her awakening. And every other character is like this. Every character has 1 special technique and then 2 spiritual pressure moves before and after their awakening. And just looking over these character scans, it appears that there's not really any major difference between the characters in terms of the controls of the game and how they actually play. I also found this scan for the controls. So we have a swift quick attack on the square button. We have a strong attack on the triangle button. Special technique actions are going to be controlled with the circle button. We have something called a breaker, which is an unblockable attack. We have something called assault soul destroying skills. On the L2 button, we have your spiritual pressure moves that each character has, and there's 2 of those per character. You can dash behind your opponent using the gate ability. There's various effects that can be activated with the reverse gauge with a combination of L2 and square, and then we have guard. You can also use your awakening by pressing L3 and R3 at the same time. I also screen captured this. The writer of this article that I could not find explains exactly how the game works and explains what some of the buttons can do, such as R1 basically being a throw that will break a guard. The fact that you have 2 different spiritual pressure techniques or Ryatsu techniques that can be used by pressing either L2 and triangle or L2 and circle, as I just went over. If you tap the triangle button twice, you'll launch what's known as a flash combo, which can attack your opponent from a distance, but the technique has a slow start and you have to get the timing right. It also explains what the goal is of both players, which is to destroy all of the opponent's souls. And these souls are the remaining lives, which are the stocks that I pointed out before. You destroy all your opponent's stocks, you win that particular battle. It explains that something known as a Kimetsu technique can destroy all of these souls in one, and that this technique is automatically activated when the spirit gauge reaches 0%. And you can increase the number of souls that are destroyed by using the Kimetsu technique. So for example, if you're at a disadvantage and you have 1 stock left versus your opponent that has 4, you can use a soul destroying technique to destroy the remaining 4 stocks at once. So you could still win the match, even if you're at a great disadvantage. You can use the Kimetsu technique by holding down the R2 button and getting the timing right for the technique's activation. And the game will showcase a now or never display when the spirit gauge turns red. And it's at that point that you can use this technique. Now regarding the awakening gauge, for transformations, the word evolution will light up at the top of the screen. You press R3 and L3 at the same time to use a transformation. When a character awakens, their performance is greatly improved. For example, when Ichigo enters his Bankai state, his attack speed increases and the number of attacks that he has also increases. So this is what's happening here. A player playing as Gin just entered his Bankai state, and now the gauge has turned red, the awakening gauge. Now, certain characters, as the article mentions, such as Ulquiorra, has two different transformations, and they can reawaken to a second state, which will further increase the number of stocks that can be destroyed by soul-destroying techniques. And then there's a small brief explanation of the reverse gauge, which is used by pressing L2 and square at the same time. The reverse gauge has 3 different effects depending on the timing, which include push and forge, which will allow you to get behind your opponent instantly. And then on the actual Bandai Namco website, there's a page that was uploaded some time ago that explains all of the basic lingo that's in the game. And the 3 reverse actions will have different effects. One increases your spiritual power, and you can recover reishi or health. One is a combo extender that will increase spiritual power. And then the third will cancel an opponent's combos, and you'll recover a little bit of the guard gauge. So with all that said, if you look at any major gameplay video that's come out recently for this game, such as this one, between Ulquiorra and Ichigo, it's pretty clear exactly how the game works and how everything plays. And again, the game's going to rely heavily on interchanging between spiritual pressure, techniques, and combo extenders with use of the reverse gauge. And then getting down certain timings, like this soul-destroying technique right here. So I think that there's enough depth here to make the game a fun experience. I just don't know about a long-term fun experience. I think the system is going to get old pretty quickly, and certain players are not going to like it in general because you can't freely move around about the screen like you can in the Dragon Ball Tenkaichi games or in the Naruto Storm games. You are hard locked on to your opponent, and so it's been designed to be more of a traditional fighting game experience. Some people aren't going to like that. And another issue that I've noticed is the number of pauses, the number of interruptions in each battle. Be it the Kimetsu techniques, such as this one, that interrupts the gameplay, or the character transformations with the awakenings, or the annoying announcer that won't shut the hell up, that hopefully you can turn that off in the final game. Some people are going to be just annoyed by certain aspects of the fighting system, and some people are going to criticize it simply because it's not a traditional normal arena based anime game like Naruto Storm or Dragon Ball Tenkaichi. Again, in the short term, I think this game it's acceptable for what they've made here. In the long term, it remains to be seen. I don't think there's enough depth here for a long-term experience. But I can't say for sure until I actually play it myself. The last thing I want to mention is something that's been bothering me about this game in general. Some of the people that are anticipating this game aren't very smart, which is a lighter way of putting it. We have people making up all sorts of assumptions about what is going to be in this game, what this game actually is and what it isn't, and especially like the number of characters that's actually even going to be in here, and who's going to be included as a playable character. The thing that really bothers me though are the people who are defending having less content in the game out of some false sense that this game is going to be this incredibly deep fighting game that's just going to have a long shelf life after its release. A fantastic example is this person, who claims that the Vizards are one-trick ponies, and because of that, they believe that the other Vizards will not be playable. There was also another thread that I personally was involved with, where we had one person who was making random assumptions saying that certain characters like Hisagi and Momo and some of these other side, smaller side characters in the series were going to be playable simply because other characters were included on the roster, and that's not how it works. Therefore, let's go over this again. And this is a list that I constructed myself, that I made a video on. And basically in that video, the only thing that I was saying is that there's upwards of around 90 characters that they could add to the game. I wasn't saying that they should add all of those characters. I wasn't saying that I was expecting all of those characters to be added. I said they should get as close to this number as possible. Specifically, I agree with this comment right here, where this person is saying they want around 60 characters to start with. And looking over this list, just the general amount of content that the game is going to cover from the actual series, it's easily possible to include upwards of 60 playable characters. But clearly that's not what they're doing. Thus far as of today, Kiyuraku is the most recent character that's been announced for Bleach Rebirth of Souls as a part of the final launch roster. And I believe Kiyuraku is character number 25. So there's 25 characters that have been announced to be playable. There's 9 weeks left until the game's release date. So that means you have upwards of 9 different characters that could be added. Maybe they'll do something special with the last week, just before release. It's clear to me that the remaining spots will likely be the rest of the Espada. I don't know if they're going to include Komamura. They may omit him, but the rest of the Espada, I believe, are going to be the remaining playable characters. There's also a character that's not listed up on here, which is the final Getsuga version of Ichigo, which is the black-haired Ichigo. For those who are not in the know, this is the version or transformation that Ichigo undergoes briefly at the very end of the Arrancar arc in his fight against Aizen right here. I don't know if they're going to include this version of Ichigo in the final game as a separate playable character, but I could see them doing something like that. Now, for those who are saying, 60 characters is ridiculous, the game doesn't need that, they're providing plenty of characters already, I beg to fucking differ. The Bleach Heat the Soul series, which is a series of fighting games that were released in the 2000s decade. The last one was released in 2010 with Bleach Heat the Soul 7. And these were games playable on the PSP. These were PSP handheld games. The last game, Bleach Heat the Soul 7, had 84 different characters that were playable. And this is the full list. Now, I actually went through the process of downloading a PSP emulator, and I downloaded Bleach Heat the Soul 7. I captured 1 hour of gameplay, and it's actually a faithful recreation of the show. They actually did a rather decent job at making you feel like you were actually playing the show. They included things such as this boss fight with Yami in his resurrection state. They included other interesting boss encounters, like this one. And this is all from the story mode. All of this, was in the show. You can actually play it here in this game. And similar to Bleach Rebirth of Souls, the Heat the Soul series is actually another, 3D fighting game. So you can only imagine what Rebirth of Souls actually looks like if, they included all of this in it. But for the people that are saying certain characters should not be included because for X reasons, some kind of strange bias, trying to defend the lack of content that the game may or may not have. I mean, you sound like a fucking fool. I'm personally not happy at the fact that the other Vizards aren't going to be playable, when they each were playable in other Bleach fighting games. And there's an easy way to make those characters work for Rebirth of Souls, because they all have holifications. Some of them use swords. One of those characters is a hand-to-hand fighter. Another one uses, magic techniques. There's a way to make all of those characters work, yet only one has been announced to be a part of the final roster. And then that's not even counting the Fractionaron car, all of which are probably going to be omitted entirely, even from the game's DLC list. It's only been announced that 4 DLC characters are going to be added. We don't know which 4 those are, but I believe they're going to be, Momo's going to be one of them. I think Hisagi will be another one. Ikaku and Yumichika, I think, are going to be the last 2. So I think those are going to be your DLC characters, right there. I'll be surprised if they add any of the other Arrancar characters outside of the 10 Espada. And if they don't include all of the 10 Espada, if they omit any one of them, I don't care who it is, whether it's Zomari or it's Baragon or someone else, the game is an automatic fail at that point. With all this said, I've become a little bit more optimistic, because it seems that Tamsoft is really going out of their way to make the story mode decent in terms of all of the content that it's going to cover from the actual show and the manga. But I am not happy at all of the characters that are being omitted, and the fighting system does look very repetitive. I think it's going to get very old quickly, and so unless the game has a large number of characters playable, most players will probably play as most of the roster maybe one time, and then they'll choose like 1 or 2 characters to play as and get bored after a few weeks. It also doesn't help that Ubisoft just delayed Assassin's Creed Shadows into late March, and so this game is going to be competing with a much bigger franchise. In terms of sales, most people only have the funds for maybe 1 game a month, and this is far from being considered within the top 10 of anticipated video games this year already. You have a number of Bleach fans that have expressed that they're not happy with the way the game looks as it stands now. Everything is still kind of up in the air with this game. Again, I am feeling a bit more optimistic simply based on what I've seen from the recent scans and some of the other reveals with the story mode. So again, Bleach Rebirth of Souls is coming out the 21st of March for consoles and PC. I'm probably going to make a final decision as to whether or not I'm going to cover the game closer to release. But until then, I will be keeping my eye out for any further updates that take place, because they're still announcing at least 1 character per week. That pattern really hasn't been broken. So the whole thing is a wait and see.